Time now for the markets with Leighton. And Leighton, poultry has been in the national headlines for several weeks now.
This situation with avian influenza is costing the U.S. some foreign sales. We'll have a bit on that story coming up. Also ahead in the markets, a weaker dollar as May begins is helping cotton futures. Some traders are advising to go slow on new crop sales. And there is some negative reaction in the beef sector to higher cattle placements. The last week of April brought a surge in old crop cotton futures. One factor was said to be the lower U.S. dollar index. In fact, analysts say cotton got the most help from that dollar of any ag commodity. Market watcher Dan Huber says the rally was memorable, largely due to the fact it's been a while since traders experienced one.
You know, the cotton market really for 6 months now has been trying to develop a base, has tried a couple different times to rally. I believe that is the biggest single-day rally in over a year. So it's a good sign that we changed the pattern. Not that we're going to get carried away. I think in my morning comments I said if we can follow through next week, there's a possibility of maybe at least getting July cotton back towards 68, 68 and a half, maybe an extreme of 71. Still not great numbers, I guess, for what it costs to produce cotton, but I mean a long ways from the low 60s and the high 50s we just came out of.
Corn prices have come under renewed pressure as the calendar turns from April to May. Analyst Darrell Good says the low prices appear to reflect an expectation for continued weak demand and yet another year of ample supplies. Trader Elaine Cubb thinks the size of this year's corn crop and the strength of the demand will be revealed more over time. So she says she's not in any hurry to make new crop sales.
I think it would be possible to see easily 15 or 20 cents higher. Maybe more if the weather remains non-perfect going forward. Although, there is El Nino coming up, which is actually generally favorable to U.S. corn production, but there's some dryness still, and I think at this point we can wait and see.
Certainly not dryness in Mississippi. She was referring, of course, to parts of the Midwest and Great Plains. Time to break a moment for a trivia quiz here on Farm Week. It's about aquaculture. What aquatic species are left in farm ponds year-round? Is the answer A, freshwater prawns, B, farm-raised catfish, C, both species, or D, neither species? You'll find out here in a few more minutes. We move into livestock in the second half of the markets. Some egg-laying operations in Iowa are the latest location of probable avian influenza cases in the United States as we record this program. Even before this development, China and at least 11 other countries had implemented a full country ban on any poultry imports from the United States. On Monday of this past week, Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack requested that China reconsider its complete ban, saying the action is not based on science. Vilsack says China is planning to send a team to the U.S. this summer to examine our biosecurity measures in the poultry industry here. Higher numbers than expected in the latest cattle on feed report brought some negative reaction in the markets the final week of April. I talked to Extension Ag economist Brian Williams.
So Brian, there were some changes in the latest monthly cattle on feed report.
Yeah, there were some changes and actually some surprises in the numbers. On our on-feed numbers, we were fairly unchanged or steady. The expectation was for it to be down about 1%. Our placements were up 0.4% from a year ago, and that was a lot higher than expected. It was expected to be down about 4.4%. And then our marketings were down 1.7% from a year ago, and that wasn't too far from our expectations.
So all put together, does this indicate herd expansion? I know you said there might be a little you saw a month ago, but are we seeing a little more now?
Yeah, potentially. I guess there's two things to kind of look for in this report. The first one was that the numbers overall were a lot higher than expected, so that's kind of a good sign that we're working on building our herd. The other thing is the heifer numbers. In this report, they break it down by steer or heifers, and the heifer numbers were down 10%. So it's kind of a sign that producers are keeping those heifers on farm rather than sending them to the feedlot.
So really, of all the numbers, really it was only the marketing's figure that was kind of in line with the pre-report guesses on this report.
Yeah, it was only about 0.2% off. The thing to remember about the marketing, so is it's probably the number we know with the most certainty. because we can look back to previous reports and see the weights of cattle going in and those sorts of things to get a more accurate guess on that one.
Well, as we record this, hadn't been a lot of time for market reaction, but what are you seeing so far as the trend here looking at the numbers?
Well, overall the report is bearish, and we've seen that reflected. I was glancing at the futures this morning, and really across the board they're down on both live cattle and feeder cattle futures for most of our month's contracts are all down right now.
And there's been some concern in the headlines in the market area about beef demand. Any final comments on that?
Well, that's something that we've been seeing and talking about for quite a while now. With beef prices being so high, there's concerns that consumers are going to want to shy away from it in favor of poultry or pork. But there is some good news right now. First of all, we're kind of entering the summer grilling season, so that should help demand. But there's also the avian influenza that might steer a few consumers towards beef as well.
With Russia remaining closed to most U.S. beef and pork products, officials are now looking to other markets in that region of the world to help expand U.S. meat exports. John Brook of the U.S. Meat Export Federation says the main push is going to be in the Ukraine, Georgia, and Uzbekistan. The promotion, he says, will target the hotel and restaurant sector in those countries. Well, we conclude with the trivia quiz. We wrap things up with the answer, and the correct choice is B this week. Farm-raised catfish are left in farm ponds year-round.